Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Superficial Spirit. I have yet another global icon joining me today on my show. Jaylene Tyme is a celebrated two spirit, sober, Indigenous trans woman, drag artist, and advocate known for her sophisticated glamour and impactful community work. With over 3 decades of experience, she seamlessly blends artistry and activism, inspiring audiences through her performances and dedication to fostering diversity, inclusion, and empowerment. A 60s Scoop survivor, Jaylene's story of resilience and advocacy has earned her national acclaim, including appearances on CBC's Canada's a Drag and Canada's Drag Race Season 5. Hi, Jaylene.
Hello. It's me and my
How does it feel to have an introduction like that?
it is something that when you think about how fast time goes by, I always find it's humbling to think about the journey of self-discovery. So I'm very proud of the things I've accomplished.
I've known you for a long time. You were in the scene when I moved here. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was that you were so established before the show. And I was reading through a lot of your press, and that was also something a lot of the other journalists in your interviews have wanted to talk to you about how your journey had been. I don't know if I would say fully fleshed out, but you were so established in the community as an artist, as a drag performer before you went into Drag Race.
Yeah, it's like different pages of like a book. And I always think of like Madonna, how she would come back in a different way. And I look at sort of how I've shown up in the world as being ones that continue to evolve and shift and change. And here we are. And I think one of the things for me is I always looked at every experience in life to just kind of show up and do the best in the day that you're in. And that sort of served me pretty good.
It's very insightful, and again, I've known you for a while, and I know this part of your personality is insightful, helpful, optimistic. But life is not always even keel, right? I guess we're on a podcast now talking about your successes, and you've gotten to this great place despite a lot of ups and downs. But when you think about the different chapters of your book, maybe going back to your 20-year-old self, what would your 20-year-old self think about the woman you've become today?
That's a great question because my 20-year-old self had just landed into a queer space from growing up on a farm and being disconnected and displaced. And so my 20-year-old self coming in, it was all so new. And we're going back a few days. It was like when you went into a queer club, you had to sign in. It was at private clubs, and it was really protected. So I remember because in society, walking down the street, you couldn't be yourself. So when you went into a queer space, it was like a place where you could really open up, maybe for the first time. And so for me, being young was really exciting. I don't think I knew what to expect at all because I had never experienced that before. So I can't say if I was able to see myself today and think that, I was gonna, number one, live, considering I was just like felt so disconnected everywhere. Um, I think that I just would overwhelm me at that time. I wouldn't be able to think that would be possible.
Did you have a lot of thoughts back then about survival into your life?
I didn't really have a lot of thoughts except for just being in the moment. And I think that was probably good. I remember being pretty fearless when I went to the city. I, found people like me and hung out with them, and we, ran the streets and did the party and, started drag, and then started to notice that when we put drag on, and, when you're young, I was like, she looks pretty good. And so when she would go out and get attention from men, like the same kind of men that used to, you know, um, you know, discriminate against me, it was something that was Pretty wild. I keep needing my glass of water for some reason. I'm losing my voice.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, you just drink the water, baby. I have my coffee. It might make me more dry in my throat, but yeah, you keep drinking if you need it. It sounds like drag then initially was like a refuge, not necessarily that you wanted to be a drag queen, or maybe it was connected to your transness, but you found some kind of safety, ironically, in that because I assume it actually wasn't that safe back then.
Yeah, well, I didn't know I wanted to be a drag queen, but I did. I didn't know what that was. But I knew that even on at home on the farm I was raised on, I used to do it in private. I used to do makeup in the bathroom when my parents weren't home and look at fashion magazines and recreate looks and be in the mirror posing like Vogue magazine kind of thing. So I did those things by myself. So it was really it felt like a deviant thing. I'd play with Barbies by myself and just explore that kind of creativity. And so I went to the city and found other people that were kind of displaying those same kind of like energies. I was like, oh, okay, this is exciting. And then I went to a bar and I saw drag queens for the first time. And at first it was like scary and I was like, "Oh, this just didn't feel it felt uncomfortable because there's that inner homophobia that I absorbed from a young age." And so it felt strange at first, but once I got onto that stage and I remember one of the first songs I did was I'll Always Love You by Whitney Houston, and it was a performance that I felt like so alive when I was on the stage and with the lights and the smoke and just that whole thing about being able to lip syncing and escaping to like a song that felt really good to me. I still look at that as being one of the first times of realizing the power of drag was the opportunity to be able to escape, to immerse yourself in music that you love, and to be able to transform into something that is probably closer to who you actually are in spirit.
That is a pretty iconic song to start with. I Will Always Love You for your first debut. Wow.
I don't know if that was the actual song, but I remember that was one of my first, and that was the one that I really did well. And I remember
Nice.
somebody in the audience going, "Oh my god, she's good." And I never forgot that.
I mean, getting that reaction from an audience is so impactful. I was in grade like I think it was 5 or 6, and somebody had dropped out of the school play, and my teacher was like, "Oh, Peter should do it because he never stops talking." And so they put me in the school play, and I remember at the end I got a standing ovation, and it was like that's all I needed. The rest of my life until now, I have been chasing that applause in one way or another because as a little queer boy in Alberta, it was just such like a blanket of acceptance. I
Yeah.
didn't know. I wasn't necessarily seeking that, but it sounds like that happened to you. You were curious about drag, you saw it, you did it, and then you had this unexpected spiritual moment.
Yeah, well, it's a gift when I look at it now in retrospect. Being able to express yourself through creativity is something that's a very special channel to spirit. And if you have it, and they say it's stage presence, I look at it as a real sacred way that we show up in spirit. And I remember I did that same song at the Commodore through like It's Just Drag. It was one of the TFD events that we did, and I did that Whitney Houston song, and then it went into a dance mix. But I remember sitting on that stage and doing it, and I have that lip sync down. So it's I look at that, I was like, "Oh my god, that's like one of the first songs I did, and here I am now doing it." And the whole Commodore is like just watching me and really responding to it. And then at the verse, everyone is singing it. And I just I that to me is a great example of the power of connection, of music, of history, of truth, of star power, and being able to you have a stage presence or you don't. It's not something that you can really learn. You have it, and what you choose to do with it and how you choose to respond to that when you know that it's there, that's, part of your journey of self-discovery.
Wow. There's so much there I want to dive into. The idea that you performed I Will Always Love You at the Commodore for all those people. I think the Commodore is like 1,000-ish when it sold out. And then the young lady who performed it for the first time when you did it for the first time, full circle moment. And you're talking about, you know, you either have it or you don't. You recognize that inner light, that star quality that people sometimes have a hard time articulating, but when someone has it, you have it. Back then, when you did it the first time, did you feel like a star back then?
Yeah, I did actually. I did actually feel that that was something that felt truthful and powerful. And so just being there and having people seeing me, and I was connecting towards that song and doing a lip sync that was like there was also spoken words. So it's like those it takes like you have rhythm to be able to capture those words and tell that story. And so sometimes people think lip sync and they think it's just like I remember Airband, it's like you just kind of have fun with it. But when it's lip sync and when you get in there and you're able to connect to the energy of that, it's I think it's really, really beautiful.
The most excited I ever was at any club, at any party, was when there was a drag performer on stage doing a song that I personally loved, and the drag queen was so in it that it didn't matter that they were doing Lady Gaga's song or Britney's song, because in that moment they were that person or more. Like they channeled the song, but they gave you something that you couldn't get from the actual artist, which was like immediate connection. You're in that night. You're of you're in the energy of nightlife, and it's so magical. This is what I loved about drag initially, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this, how it has evolved from like the magical intimacy of drag being part of our community, something that we cultivated, and now drag race has cracked it open. It's for the mainstream. Drag brunches on every corner, hundreds of girls coming out of the franchise. It has changed drag in a lot of ways, some good, some bad. Does it still have that magic it did when it was just ours in the club?
Uh yeah, I think it does still have that magic. It's different though. It's like I always liken it to, when you're in a relationship with somebody and you're in love with them, but then you're not in that relationship anymore. It doesn't mean that you don't love them. It just changes. So that love
Mm-hmm.
shifts to a different reality. I feel like in drag, it was something for me that was integral and very raw and very community based and quite private. But it was beautiful to be able to explore and learn about yourself and create your character and your art and identity through that. I think now there's a lot of like you can just go onto Amazon and have your whole look for you the next day. Like so you can just do it and pay somebody to do your makeup and and you see Drag Race and you want to be on it. By the end of the week, you can create a look and do your thing, right? And I think that's exciting to see, but also um, I just want to remind people too about the responsibility with this culture, the fact that it is steeped in such history of our human rights movement. And so I always feel really attached to that because that's what I saw when I came out. It was in like 1991 and 1991. And this is at a time when HIV and AIDS was really impacting our communities because we didn't know really what was going on. And a lot of our community members were being like they were losing connections with their family and they didn't have the support from healthcare, so they really needed the community. So I watched the drag community raise money and funds for their friends. And I think that for me, I think one of the reasons why we always raise money at our drag shows is because that's the energy that we came into community knowing that if we have the opportunity to help somebody else, just be really mindful of that. And I've taken that in my drag career. A lot of my presence in drag has been through community and fundraising and representation, many different levels, and that's what kept me keeping on. Is just knowing that there's a place for me, and I think over the years, it's like one of the reasons why when I got cast onto Drag Race, it was a surprise to people, but not a surprise to some because it's like have always done drag that was at a real, I think, like at a polished presence, polished. Say those two words together. But I think I did good drag, and I think wasn't really, I kinda did my own thing too, so there was an authenticity that was part of that as well. So I think that I kept putting my quarter in the machine. As soon as Drag Race came to Canada, I applied every season, and I'm like, "Well, I'll never know unless I try, and maybe it isn't for me." Didn't really see my age or any trans people really per se in the beginning, but I was like, but that doesn't mean that, I'm still doing drag. I'm still me. I'm still part of this culture really many years in. So I just kept applying, and I think that I share the story of saying that every culture and every generation of drag is important to our community.
When you were announced, I would say my reaction was exactly how you just described. I was surprised, but not surprised. And when I look back to when I came to Vancouver, you were so of the scene, but also not in the scene. Like you were not a trend. You were not like riding a wave and coming in and out. You did stand alone. The first time I saw you as Dolly Parton was the first time in my life I had seen somebody that I knew who did drag and was like, my mind, like it broke my mind because I didn't know how you changed your face that way. First time I had ever seen it in real life. Carlotta does the thing with the Reba lips where it's a
Yeah.
little like she gets there, but yeah, your drag was always elevated, very impressive. Not a lot of people back then and probably now could touch you in terms of the elevation and the glamour of it. So when you were announced, it was like, of course, that makes so much sense. Immediately, I'm like, what was going on in Jaylene's mind when she's auditioning? I didn't know that you had applied every season, but for me, just turned 40. I've always been really good at like moving towards the things that I want. But I have to say, I do get in my head sometimes about feeling too old to release new music. Nobody cares. I don't have as many followers, blah, 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 blah. What was going through your head as you're putting yourself out there over and over again for 4 seasons before you got on and then getting the call? Do you tell me what was going on in your head in terms of how you fit into that landscape?
Yeah, well, I feel like I had to make peace with myself, and I think I've been doing that over the years in a healing journey. I mean, 27 years sober. So, I mean, I
Amazing.
was like, I navigated a lot of my queer experience in Vancouver as a sober person. And so I think that I just showed up in a way that was part of the extended family of like the Odyssey and all the queens in there with Feather Boa, with Joni and Justine and Willie Taylor and all those queens from back in the day. And I was part of the court as an empress. And it's my 20-year anniversary as Empress of Vancouver this year. And so I look at all of that as being something that was really, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that I just wanted to kind of I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be included. I wanted to take care of myself and not have to go back to I was part of the street community in my addiction. So I knew I didn't want to go back to that. And so everything was like really connected with the recovery community. Drag to me was, and I look at it today like a medicine, part of my identity. It helped me really confirm that it was more than just a costume. It was my identity. And I learned how to really separate the two and go through a journey of doing that, where I didn't want to feel like I was wearing a costume all the time. So I had to explore that. So everything was just about being truthful. And when Drag Race did come, I knew I didn't need it. I didn't need it to be me. I was still really working really close with community. I was doing the things. And I think I felt, because I remember how inspired I was from RuPaul's Drag Race season one. And I'm like their age when they all got cast. I was watching it and seeing it. I was like, oh, that would be amazing because I love drag. And I remember RuPaul's Supermodel was one of my first songs as well, like 93 that came out. I was doing that back in the day. And I was like, I remembered, what that meant. I was like, oh, that's amazing to have like a drag show for us drag queens. And then you fast forward and, like, not even thinking, because there's so many different generations, and it's, a lot of youth focused and a lot of real, athletic dancing kinda thing, which is not me. And so I was like, "Oh, I don't know," but I just was like, "Oh, well, it doesn't really matter." I was actually really showing up and strengthening my spirit every year I was sober. Every year I showed up and connected to community and helped other people feel connected to community. And everything about me was really intentional, and I knew I was on a journey. That isn't something that I need to push or make happen. I just have to just show up, don't give up, do the best you can do right now, and whatever it's going to be is going to be. And like I said, though, there was a gift there. There was a spirit that was meant to be. There was something very special within me that was destined to reach bigger audiences.
It seems now so silly to be like, how did it feel being like the oldest person in the cast? Because the way you are thinking about your own life is like stacking the experiences, right? Like, this is all part of my journey. So I show up in that way, not like, do I look different? I'm older. Your perception seems to be right. And maybe that is the 27 years of sobriety. Amazing, by the way. Long-term sobriety is friggin' hard. Anybody who's tried knows that. And there's a lot of people, I mean, in our community that are in addiction, are teetering on that line, have tried sobriety, are scared of sobriety. And what it does, good or bad, is it rips sort of the cover off of your eyes, and you're sort of forced to see yourself as you are. And if you live that over and over and over again, it sounds like you get to a place of clarity. Doesn't I assume that doesn't mean you're happy all the time. It just means you see yourself as you are without so many filters.
Yeah, well, I do use some filters today, let's be real. But um, no, it is something where I feel that you learn how to tell yourself the truth, and I think that that is the most important place to be, is to be able to tell yourself the truth. And I know that having have felt like I had so many spiritual awakenings within staying sober, and I was also starting to really explore what my history was really like, because I just came to the city, hit the queer scene, started being part of the sex trade in the street community, and doing all that, and getting into addiction, and being put into situations that where my life was threatened, and a few times, and just not really having any fear of it, or not even really having the feeling of self-worth to care. And, that was part of my experience, is I wasn't taught to value myself. And I think that took me a long time getting sober, and I still to this day am working on that. Is just being able to look at, and as a 60 Scoop adoptee, and being able to explore and going through a class action to take ownership of my ancestral identity, and my land, and the history of my family. And it's only been like 4 years since I've had that kind of really open up for me. And like I said, I'm 54 years old right now. So it was like I was 50 when I got all my information of my history, and I went to a powwow on my nation, and then I was able to really connect and do some work with people who are incarcerated, and lead talking circles, and connect with elders groups, and be a force of the two spirit identity in healing. And so all of that, to me, it just feels like um, it is something that continues to expand. And I just want to say to people, it just know that your presence is, it's not a coincidence. And there is a role for each of us to play as we walk this earth. And I think the more we take the time to be honest with ourselves, to take care of ourselves, to get to know who we are, what we love, and what we're afraid of, and we just take time to know that you can't do it all in one day, but you can show up and just do the best you can, and things will. It's, in recovery we call it like the onion. It's like you just peel the layers away, and more will be revealed. And as you get there, you've built that strength to kind of face even more challenging things.
You are so obviously connected to spirituality. It's a big part of how you're communicating your story. I I'm also spiritual. I'm really passionate about the way that I can cultivate that in my life. I find that a lot of queer people are scared of spirituality because they think of religion. This is also a big part of people exploring recovery because there are 12-step meetings that are a spiritual program. Um, but there is a way to not water down, but simplify what spirituality can mean for you. Because to me, it's a conversation, an internal dialogue that I have about inner peace and stillness and connecting to something bigger than myself. Um, two questions, how do you describe your own spirituality? And how would you demystify it for a queer person who is they're craving something more, but the God thing is too much.
Yeah. I actually work in a two-spirit program now. Today I work in with a community-based research center. So we work as a group of everyone on our team is Indigenous from across Turtle Island, across Canada. And one of the things that I'm really aware of is access to information, which means we need to translate things for people to really understand and take ownership of. And a lot of times when you think of research, it's a lot of words, it's academic, and it's like people don't understand, or it feels like it's it feels repressive because it's somebody in power that knows more than you. And so they seem to overpower you with these words. And I feel like that is like spirituality. It's like if you don't have a definition to it, if you don't feel like you have access to it, instead it's something that you connect to being repressive or being exclusive, something that isn't for you, in fact is not going to love you, but it's going to bring harm to you, you're not going to respond to that in a good way. So I think that it's important for people, when we find that definition that works for us, that we share that we just say, and that we translate that. Like, for example, when I go into communities with a survey about Indigenous health access, I let my relatives, the communities, know this is what I'm doing. We're here to help strengthen resources. And then they'll be more apt to connect with me versus coming in and saying we're doing a survey about Indigenous health. If I do it in a way that doesn't feel truthful and connected, they're going to chase me out. And so it's just like with us. If I talk about spirituality, saying that this is the way to go, this is like what you got to do, you have to do this, and your life will change. People are like, I do not connect with that. Go away. Whereas if I just say, so this is something that worked for me, and an understanding about how I can take care of myself, an understanding of how when times seem really confusing, I have some things that I do to calm myself down. And it helps me be able to show up in my life and move forward in a way that continues to learn and to be able to feel and connect to. I think people are like, yeah, tight life can be pretty challenging at times. How do I shut off the head from being so chaotic? How do I feel safe? How do I feel brave? How do I talk to somebody about things that are important to me that I've never been able to say to anyone? So these are the things that I find. It's like I work in federal corrections, and I'm in maximum security all the way to minimum, and I sit in a space with people across. And one thing I want to make clear to them is that I'm a safe person to be, and we're creating a brave space for us to connect. So when I look at you as as a relative, and as Indigenous people, we refer to each other as relatives. And I want to just confirm in that space that I'm here to listen and to connect. And I think that is something I've taken ownership of because I have been in spaces where I wasn't safe. I have had situations to where I was excluded and it feels like I'm walking uphill everywhere I go. But I've also been in spaces where I realized the connection with another person that told me that I was valuable. When people listen, when people see you, and when people hear you, that's when the work can start.
I noticed that you were doing work in the federal justice system. It's something that I didn't know and I wanted to ask you about. Can you sort of walk through the experience of the first time you go into a maximum security facility? What's that like? Obviously, you can't talk about the people you're working with, I assume, but it was so unexpected to see that on the list of things that you are doing to help your community. Tell me more about it.
Well, it's one of those callings to be of service, I feel. It's, like I mentioned, I'm sober and also a 60s Scoop survivor and also a trans person and, part of the 2S LGBTQI community. And so I have, a lot of lived experience, but now I've shifted that to loved experience is when I talk
Mm.
about a story. I heard somebody say that, I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense to me," because what I share is a loved experience. So when I come into spaces, that's what I lead with. And I was invited to come in actually to be part of the first Pride event that they had in federal corrections in the Fraser Valley in Canada. And I went, it's as to perform as Jaylene Tyme. So I went in and I did a number in there, a performance for them. And then I told my story about who I am and what my journey was. And what I realized at that interaction was we're more alike than we're different. In fact, the reason why I walk the earth and I have the life I have today doesn't mean that I've had a different life than a lot of them. It just means, but for the grace of the Creator, I was able to like there's some situations that there's a lot of people like we don't really know what brings people there, but it's 80% are Indigenous people. And so when you think about that, that is a real impact of colonization and sort of like when we talk about every child matters, let's think about who let those children down. And I think about a lot of people protecting themselves in a street community and through violence, they end up there. And so I was there for the first time and I performed and it was fun, but it left something in me and then it resonated with them. And so they reached out to me again to come in to connect. There's quite a vibrant trans community and a two spirit community in there. So and their elders group didn't really have anybody that truly understand that lived experience. So they wanted somebody to be able to connect and to be able to share spirit and share space with people in their healing journey.
I had no idea that there were pride drag shows in
I think there's
prison.
been one.
That is insane. So, like, do they have a stage? Like, what's the setup?
It's like a gym. It's like a school
Okay.
gym, and there was like a little boom box kind of there, and you did your thing. And there's this one person there that I laugh at this because I talked to her later, and she's trans woman, and I was wearing like a mini dress. I mean, I was wearing tights and padding and all that stuff, right? But the illusion looked like I was like all legs, right? So she said, "When I saw you come in there, I thought they're gonna walk you right out." And I thought that was just the funniest. And let me tell you a powerful story about visiting there. Well, I got on Drag Race, so I used to go in there every week, and then I would just do it when I could because I was also working at another job, so I only had limited availability. So I went did Drag Race, and I wasn't there. And then they called me back and asked if I would come in and do a couple things. So sometimes I do some trainings with them. And I came back after Drag Race and it was airing now. And I walked in and I was walking around. I didn't really realize. Then this trans woman walked around the corner and she screamed. because I was there. And then I was talking with them, with everyone there, and they were having viewing parties there. And so they remembered me. So they were cheering me on. And I
Oh my
was like, and
God.
I remember calling the executive producer of Drag Race, and I said, I just want to let you know where the story is reaching. And the fact that I'm able to kind of go back there and let them see, that that we are family, and we will fly. And you may feel like it doesn't feel possible for you right now, but just know, by you being and sharing with me and creating community for me to include me, you're allowing me to really strengthen my wingspan, so I'm able to reach places that I never thought possible because I didn't think I would be alive. And it's because I show up truthful in every space, and I don't look at anyone any different. I know some of like really amazing, fabulous, famous people, and I love that. But I also know some people that have shared their story for me, and I've got so much respect. And I really value the fact that they have trusted me to share those stories. And so I when I went there and they were reacted to see me, and all of my fashion for Drag Race was intentional. Everything was connected to me and my story and our story as Indigenous people. And I knew if I have an opportunity to really stand proudly in my truth, it was going to include the stories of many.
It's so important to hear this because I don't know. I've been around drag queens a lot. I worked with a lot of the girls from the American franchise. I'm helping them book shows. And I have to say that there can be a chip on my shoulder about the franchise and the amount of money girls can put into it versus the amount of bookings that they're getting. And it's this assembly line of drag and blah blah blah. But then I hear this story and I never would have imagined that the girls watching you in that space, how that would affect them. Because, I'm a white gay guy living in Vancouver. It's easy for me to be like, oh, drag race, blah, blah, blah. But it's for the people who feel so far removed from what that show can do. Like somebody like you getting on that show, it when you talk about representation and you see that in the news, it can lose its meaning because we're talking about it so much. But that example for me, it really grounds it in the space between I'm a famous drag queen and I'm in a maximum security prison, and those places seem far away, but then you go on TV and it shrinks.
Hmm. I'm in many spaces with different vulnerable communities. There's some youth that I get to share stories with, and there's many different levels where I feel it's important to be visible. And with the trans community right now, specifically with like legislation and all of the barriers that are put towards gender affirming care. And I went on Drag Race and I saw Sanjina and Michaela in there, and I was like, "There's three trans women here." I'm like, I felt like overwhelmed first. I thought this is happening. So there is a shift in representation and presence, and people need to see that. Those young kids, and I have a message for people. It's like it seems really scary right now. There's so many things going on where people are trying to like we're going back in steps in for our rights and freedoms, and that feels really scary. But know this, there are legions, countless people who have found their freedom in a journey of self discovery as trans people, and we're still here. We've always been here, and we're not going anywhere. And so, like, I just say that it's like, so when I show up, I mean, I did Drag Race, I was on there, but it has taken me now to travel across Turtle Island. Like, I've done in 2025, I did 18 keynote speeches, I did 15 Pride events, and I was like everywhere. I took that butterfly dress, the Every Child Matters, inspired by Andy Everson's movement and Phyllis Websted's story about the orange shirt, from Newfoundland to Victoria. And so I'm just like, oh, in fact, it took my breath away. And even like where I work with TFD, and Tommy's my agent, and to kind of just see sort of like what was happening was the amount of people that were like after the finale, I just started to get booked. And it was like this thing about and just showing up with intention, being truthful, but also being mindful of the power of drag and on how that is such valuable contribution to community overall.
Tommy, I remember when your season wrapped, I was checking in with him and he said you were the busiest by far. Like it just, people really resonated with you being on the show. I think you also were a breath of fresh air because it was, to your point about the athletic dancing. I mean, we love a death drop. We want to see them do cartwheels and flips and the reveals, but it's good to interrupt the pattern sometimes and remind people. I mean, how many girls go on Drag Race in their early 20s? Think about how far that is from the AIDS crisis, right? Like
Yeah.
me at 40, I didn't really understand that till my early 20s when Joni sat me down at Fountainhead and gave me my history lesson, right? Comes in on Joni's knee. I didn't know. I thought Pride was about partying and sex, and it is, but there's just so much distance from it now that I think that's probably why prides were gravitating towards you, and also the keynote speakers, because again, we talk a lot about representation, but it can be really abstract until somebody like you is like, no, I am that person. I can speak to it. It's not just like a paragraph in a news article on CBC. Like that's where people can connect the dots.
Yeah, I remember coming into recovery, and I couldn't form a sentence at the time because of my psychosis. And I was talking to a counselor at a treatment center, and they asked me, "Well, what do you want from this?" Like, and in my mind, I was thinking, "Well, I just want someone to like take me seriously." Because I could never communicate. I would always get a loss for words and be overpowered by everything. And so I felt like really so small. And I have vowed never to be small again. And I think about it, I'm like, here's this person that can't form a sentence, and now they're traveling across the country, leading keynote speeches and being um, experiencing like drag race. And I think to myself, I know sometimes it's like, I feel like it's always like heavy stories. It's very rich stuff from me, but also at the core of it, remember I am that bitch. I am like a really good drag queen, and it's like I show up, and when I experience Drag Race, I look back at it and I see it, and parts of it make me feel uncomfortable because I was so nervous, and I feel like that actually taught me a lot about I was really nervous, but I was really truthful, and then there was magic there. And I remember I would black out. I didn't remember what I said, and I got home. I hope I didn't make a fool of myself. And I talked to an elder, and she's like, "You may have been there, and you may have forgot what you said, but you were always carried by spirit. You always had that support. So what you said was what you meant, what was needed to be said."
I cannot imagine filming an entire show and then going home and just thinking about like what the hell, how are they going to edit it? What did I say? Like I can't. Oh my god. Were you so when you finished, was it like a daily thought like oh god, like what is it going to be like on TV? What did I say? How much space did that take up in your mind?
Well, people were like kind of like telling me, as like, "Oh, I would never do that. I would never risk ruining my career of 30 years to do that." And to me, I never looked at it like that. I always looked at it like, I I'm gonna give it a go. I mean, I just put my quarter in, and I went through the audition process. And for those who don't know, the audition process is major. Like if you can get through that, you've already kind of won, because it literally is like you go through a lot of levels of that. So when you finally get that, would you like to be part of the season? It's just like it's sort of like you're like it's like, "Oh my god, I've just been through so much here." It's like, and everything is just like, "Wow, oh, what do I do next?" And then you got 6 weeks to create your package. Like my regalia was all that beating was done in 6 weeks.
Oh my
When you think
god.
about like everything coming together, and then you have to pack it all and just go there and hope for the best. And then you get there. I'm not a choreographed kind of gal, and so to have to be put into that, I was just like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. And now they look at it as like, when you get back, I got with some dancers to help me with like some basic stuff, because I don't have to be that, but I have to do something. So it's just figuring out what I love to do and what my capacity is as an entertainer. and strengthen it. And so now, like, I love when you see the glow ups. You see people there, they're afraid, it's really awkward. You're like, "Oh my god." And then you see people go back and they see themselves on film and they're like, "Oh my goodness, okay, this is what I need to work on." And, if they come back to another season, if they've been working, you see a completely different person on it. I think that people see me as, not a different person, but definitely whenever I do drag and whenever I show up, I'm like, my level of drag is, I thought I was at, pretty polished, but now it's like I put money into it and like collaborate with,
Hmm.
designers and stuff. And my looks are like, actually, it's so interesting because I have somebody that I watched that was like from Drag Race that really, for some reason, I see them. I'm like, that's what I want to present. It's Isis Couture. And I see her and I see just, and I've worked with her. We did a show together and I just watched her from head to toe. It's like we can be with a small group of people or a stadium of thousands, and she's that same quality every time. And I was like, that's what I feel is my magic. I think I'm really great quality drag, so I want to make sure that regardless of the size of the group, I want to always present that.
It's so important to have another artist or peer in your community that you are like looking to for inspiration. um it keeps you hungry. Like, even you can be at the top of your game. I was talking to Tommy about this. Like, if you never stop hustling or having something that is you're curious about, that excites you, like you looking at Isis, by the way, is just incredible. um if you lose that, how do you evolve? Like, how could you be a drag queen from the drag race universe and not have at least one queen where you're like, damn, I need to get to that?
Well, see, this is the thing. I watch people, and when I've like I said, I did a lot of traveling, so I was able to meet a lot of drag race queens, and we went to London, England for you drag RuPaul's Drag Con, and
Yep.
met a lot of people. And it was so amazing. I watch how people treat people. I watch how they interact with their fans, and that's what really inspires me because I always want to be that. I always want to be available and but also have be able to have boundaries but with kindness. And so I just kind of pay attention, and that's part of the, I think another person who does that really well is Kendall Gender, is somebody that who's always with her like her fans and with people. She's consistently gracious with them, and I think that is something that you'll see the people that are working year after year, and that's one of the traits that they have, is that it's even before Drag Race. How do you show up in community? It's like not everybody's going to be not everyone's going to think you're like their cup of tea or whatever, but if you can consistently say that I show up and I do my best to just be kind and grateful for opportunities, then you're going to continue to work.
Being gracious is so important. I remember back in Britney and Christina. Remember, there was like when they both came out, and Christina had the better voice, but Britney was a bigger star. And all of the big celebrities like Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston stands out because she said something like, Christina's a great singer, but Britney's really nice. She's very sweet and likable, and it goes a long way in entertainment because entertainment can be dark. There's high turnover. Fame and money changes people. So if you can still stay grounded in like some kind of normalcy, yeah, your fans are going to resonate. You also are like staying curious about your art. You're connecting with your community versus like, I'm a star, these are my fans. People can sense that through Instagram, TikTok, through the TV. That's why some queens go on the show, really talented, but they don't pop off because if there's like, even, I hate to say insecurity because you can't really control that necessarily in your own journey, but through the TV, people know who is going to be available to them, I think.
Yeah, I find, I feel when I look back my experience with Drag Race, I love it. I just love it. I even watch it and I see it and I'm just like, "Oh, coulda, woulda, shoulda, all that stuff comes up, but it is what it is." And I just look at it Like for in episode 2, I was able to share my regalia from my nation for the first time. That's like something that is like history making. And also the conversation with Zana. They have never had a workroom
Mm,
discussion for 15 minutes. Clock that. A 15 minutes
wow.
room discussion. So I was like, that one went viral. Like over 8 million people worldwide learned about the 60s Scoop. I take that with like such pride. It's just knowing. And then the finale coming out in that dress that was like made by Sean Malmus, who's like, somebody I've been in community with a long time, and we had connection with the original artist and the blessing, and all that whole process was so respectful, and it just came out like so ethereal. I felt so. I look back at it, I'm just like, that's just such a beautiful imprint on my experience on Drag Race. And when I finished it and I look back at it now, I worked that Miss Congeniality title. And I was like, if I could take seriously, for me, when I won that, I was like, I've won. I won.
Yeah.
Jaylene Tyme as the person that works in community just to kind of like create spaces where people can be themselves for years and not always really seen for that, but just being consistent and just realizing that, yeah, you know what? Sometimes I get looked over here, but I'm still going to do that because I think it's important. And then my peers tell me that I'm the person that brought an environment that made them feel like they could be themselves. I'm like, I take that as one of the biggest, like, I feel like I'm a winner of season 5 because of that. It's like I am one of the winners for it because I took that and I held that with care for my reign for that year. Everywhere I went, I said the important. I remember Brooklyn used to say every episode, we need drag now more than ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I was talking on the stages, performing as a headliner, I would headline on those stages, and the next day I'd be doing surveys in the field. It's like all these things. Never forget who we are and how we show up. But I finished that with such pride, and being able to pass that on to another local community member, Hazel, who's I've always seen her just being lovely, and it just felt really right. And I just know that I left an impact, and moving forward, it's like I have nothing to be embarrassed about with my Drag Race presence, because I look at it, it's one of the proudest things that I've done.
This is the thing about that show. It's it's a launch pad. It can take you lots of different places. It's not a blank check for fame and fortune. You're not guaranteed anything. And you start a brand new grind post show, because I think there's another layer of pressure, because you're like, okay, I got on the show. Now what? Now what? And I think what you did really well is you only solidified what you did before the show, which is, leader, spirituality, truth, recovery, community, and you enhanced it. So the show made it bigger and a broader audience, but like you said, you didn't need it. It helped, but you were doing this before, and now you're just doing it for more people. And what a relief. Then going into the show and being like, okay, now that I'm on the show, I can be this, I can be that, I can do this, I can do that. How Oh my God, that must be so much pressure on these girls who go in and their dreams are coming true, but maybe they don't have the tools or the stability or the resources to do what you're able to do. Jimbo, same thing, right? They came in with a clarity and a sense of purpose, and they knew who they were. And you can tell how their journey has evolved.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that's why I love having older queens being casted on it as well, because I'm not the best performer out there. I do what I do, and I love it. But there are some people in the history of my experience as a drag performer that would be amazing on Drag Race, but they're done now. Like, they don't do drag anymore, a lot of them. But I just think I love being there and representing kind of the old school vibe, is coming in,
Mm-hmm.
just being really glamorous, but also intentional about community. I think that was
Mm-hmm.
something that was really important for people to see. And, also I have a sense of humor that a lot of people didn't know I had. Like, I can be really rotted behind the scenes,
You can.
but
You sure can.
I do that, but I just want to make sure there's always a space for me and people like me, because I just don't, when you think about, it's interesting because I'm with Tommy, and the tagline is the future of drag.
Hmm.
Well, the future of drag is all of us. And that's the thing. It's for those who have been able to really be able to take their art form and realize that anything is possible. When you connect with other people and share your art with people, like I said, like the only limit is your imagination.
There's rumblings about a Canada's All Stars. Have you
Hmm.
heard this?
Oh, I think we've all heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and any desire, any yeah,
I think that, like I mentioned, the first time was like, oh my God, you're just so shocked to be on it. Like for me, I was like, it wasn't something that I knew was going to happen. Sometimes people think it's only a matter of time. I'm going to be on it. They just got that confidence that's just instilled in them. I did not have that confidence instilled. I've been kind of like fighting my entire life to kind of just try to figure out who I am and how I fit in and set boundaries and all that kind of thing. So I didn't have that confidence built in. I had to really fight for it. So when I got on Drag Race, it was like there was Kit and Caboodle before me, and the Girlfriend Experience, and Denim, and Kimmy Couture. It's like some other people before that were trans, but any older people, not really, just Kitten. So it was like
yeah.
I'm the second oldest in the Drag Race franchise to be on it, and I'm just like, okay, so I didn't expect it. So for me going on, it was just like, oh, geez, when you look at some of my awkwardness in it, it's because I wasn't fully prepared for that whole experience. But that being said, when I got home, I got to work, and I think I could do another season,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think that would be interesting, and I think people want me back. So you never know. I mean, I don't even know how that whole process works, but I'm being present, and yeah, if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. If not, I'm already starting this year off, and it's starting off with a bang. So I mean, it's just like I'm going to continue to just do really good drag, and I have fun with that. Is
Yeah.
like making the drag even more.
This is a little bit of a pivot, and I know we're getting to time, but I really wanted to ask you this. There's drama around Serene Fox as a judge on Canada's Drag Race, and people are using the term pretendian. I trying to understand. I think I have a clearer understanding of what that means. But as somebody who's been on the show and is super passionate about representation, what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a really layered question, and it is something that it is causing a lot, because there have been a lot of people that have been it has been found out that they can't confirm their Indigenous identity, and have been taking away opportunities from other Indigenous people, and so that's a reality. And so when I look at that, it's like it's really challenging being a person that was displaced and had that all taken away from me, and to watch other people that have been living that with, and they're actually not Indigenous. So for myself, it's tender. As far as other people, if I don't have the information fully, I know what it means to be displaced. I also know what it means. For many years of my life, I didn't have the documentation because all of my records were sealed. So I didn't have that available. If somebody asked me to prove it, I wouldn't be able to. So I look at it like this. I look at it like, unless I have all the answers, I am not going to judge anybody. I'm going to create a space. And an elder told me this: when somebody says you're Indigenous, you welcome them into the circle, because it's not up to you to make that decision. That decision and anything that comes from that, it will figure itself out. My role is to show up in a space and to welcome people into a circle, because I was excluded for a long time. So when I look at people that are pointing their fingers at other people, I'm like, if you actually look at a lot of them, it's like the internet can be very toxic in a way that people are not communicating effectively. They're communicating with a lot of accusations, but they're not backed up with actual real proof. And so I always I try to be able to not engage in the online presence unless I have the information that has been confirmed. And I've felt awkward about things, and I've felt certain things, and I'm not sure. Do I trust things? Not always. But I just know that as far as it goes, unless I actually know, somebody tells me that's the information that they believe, and that they, I follow that. And more will be revealed, because this is really kind of a hot topic right now. But I'm not one, like, and some people say, well, you're just not, don't want to like make waves or anything. It's like, well, I mean, essentially, I'm a healer. So I'm somebody that creates space for people to feel truthful and to try to find connection. And I know that, myself included, and with the residential schools and the 60 Scoop, many of us have a history that was taken from us. So I am not going to not be sensitive towards that. Um, but I mean, I just think that if anybody, I feel that if you cannot confirm your historical placement, that maybe you step away from the opportunities that of financial gain. I would, maybe, that, not maybe, I would encourage people, if you can't confirm your identity and your indigenous history and connection and to community, if you can't confirm that, then don't be a person that is benefiting from that, when other
Hmm.
people, you're taking it away from other people.
That's there's one thing between questioning, exploring your identity privately, and not knowing, and that would be confusing enough. But yeah, that's what I took from the sentiment too. It's not necessarily the confusion; it's the privilege of the career and the platform and the money that so many people don't have access to, and
Mhm.
it's such an extreme. Like talking about the girls you met in the federal prison, think about those opportunities that they had or didn't have versus other folks like her who on TV. So I think that's a really, it's important for people to remember the healing space and always lead with empathy. But that doesn't mean you can't, like you just said, make clear suggestions. Maybe explore it without getting the big paycheck and then come back when we know.
Yeah, and I think as far as Serene goes, I mean, that's somebody who I've met and is very lovely. And I believe that their story is, their historical lineage is unique, and so, like a lot of indigenous people. So that's what I'm leading from, is like, um I don't like to see how people are like just being really cruel online. I think that's not doing anybody any good. And so I'm a supporter, and I know there's some people out there that they don't believe that, and everyone's entitled to what they believe, right? But like I said to you, I'm a healer, and I want to bring people into the circle.
Great way to end, Jaylene. This amazing conversation. I typically ask what advice you would give to the listeners who are looking up to you, but I feel like you gave advice for an hour. You're so insightful. You have so much clarity of self. You're a refreshing voice in the drag race universe. And I'm just so grateful that not only that I've known you for so long personally, but that you were able to come on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I was thinking about when the Odyssey closed down, and we were having a big party in the back room there, where Ron used to make all the styrofoam signs. I remember you got kind of being in there, and like having like that, your big boots and your the big like fun fur jackets and stuff like that. But time goes by really fast. But I think it's interesting too, because when you talk about things, and about how, I love how you're like, I'm the first pop star or something. It's like, I'm famous, and it's like, and just remember that it is that core energy that is something that is it's a gift, and it's there. And regardless of sort of what's attached to it, it's something nobody can take from you. And so, a focus is to really do what you love to do, and work on your art from the core of the strength of your spirit, which is magnificent. And that will reveal what is next for you, and it's going to continue to grow. That is your guiding force, though. But just also know, by the action of creating conversations and connections of spirit, like we're doing now, that has shifted you from a space of being hurt, and being in space to where I can't speak for you, but I feel like we're kindred in this, of just not always feeling that we were understood. on, because we've always known there was that magic inside of us, something very special. We didn't really
Hmm.
know how to like display it at times, and we would kind of try to escape from it. But you know what? It's a full circle. You come back
Yeah.
and you connect. And this right now is the same as being on a stage and connecting with an audience, because your
Hmm.
intention is to be here, create spirit, and share it with people, and the audience is even larger.
I feel like you're a medium right now. You're channeling whatever I needed to hear because I am now full circle moment for sure. Back then, first of all, I'm glad you remember that crazy little room at the Odyssey. Back then, I was so desperate for validation and fame. I felt special. I felt like I had a vision and talent, but I was, I guess, scared or confused. There was also no path that I saw for myself. Like if you think about pop music, and I do have a lot of hangups. Like I felt like I was too early. I missed the boat. I'm old, but that's okay. I can have those feelings. I'm still making music. I'm still doing this
Yeah.
because more than my insecurity, I have to trust that feeling of being a star is not necessarily linked to fame. It's like an inner light that I just need to let out whenever I can and trust that it'll take me where I need to go. And if that's for one conversation or 10 million people, all I need to do is move towards the feeling. So I'm just one step at a time.
I had a friend of mine say to me, and ask me for some, well, consult, if you will. And I say to people now, and I love this: is this important to you? You have to think about it personally. Is this important to you? And does it feel good? And those two questions you ask yourself. And then I ask, when people ask me for advice, I say to them, is it important to you? Does it feel good? Then great. I think that's the most important thing. And sometimes you just need to hear that and sit with it and ask yourself what you're working towards. What are the details of it? What is the project that you have that you're thinking about? Should you invest the energy in it? You ask yourselves those questions, and if you can honestly answer that to yourself, it is important to me and it makes me feel good. That will reveal something more than you can even imagine.
That's amazing. Thank you. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, I needed to hear that. We all do. It was, thank you.
Yeah, just keep moving, keep doing your
I
thing.
will. I will. Can't stop me now, Eddie.